Hey, we're doing it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we're live.
All right.
There's noise. There's some music. There's all kind of stuff. Hey, how's it going, man?
That's good.
Awesome.
I'm not
You're looking at
you.
the. You're looking at the camera. No, that's awesome. That's great. That's what you want. You want to be looking at the camera. We're talking to the nobody that's here. That's fine. No, but you know what? People are going to show up. It starts small, and it's just going to get bigger. Next thing you know, we're going to have like 500 people watching this stream. It's going to be amazing. So let's talk about comic books that are out this week, Aaron.
All right.
What do we got, dude?
So it's the 5th week of the month. Every now and then you get a month that has 5 weeks in it, and what that means is usually it means it's a pretty light week because most companies plan for monthly releases, and most months have 4.
So the 5th week kind of sucks.
Not always. The reason I led with that is because it's a small week, but actually like 3 of my absolute favorite books that I've been following come out this week. So it's a weird,
well,
maybe it's just because I read the stuff that nobody else is reading.
Right.
So,
the most obscure things you can find. Yeah, no, that's fair.
So,
That's fair.
But we'll talk about probably the best Marvel book that I have been reading. And if you've been coming into the store, whoops.
You're almost dropping stuff off the table.
Yeah, I just don't want to wreck everything.
Fine.
If you've been coming into the store, you've probably seen me or heard me talk about this book, Clobberin' Time. It's a 5-issue miniseries.
I've literally never heard you talk about
it. Well, you don't come into the store all that often anymore.
Don't. I'm only here every day, and I sleep in the back. Other than that, yeah,
I never see you.
Yes.
So this is just a 5-issue series about the Thing from the Fantastic Four. And each issue he teams up with a different character. So the first issue was Hulk. Second issue was Wolverine. This third issue is Doctor Strange.
Okay.
And I love this comic because there's a nice hero shot of Doctor Strange.
Doctor Strange
Looks
doing
great.
strange stuff.
It's a pretty. It's just an action-heavy comic book.
Yeah.
It's not about any of the current continuity going on with, like, whatever the big stories that they're doing.
Just stands
it's just
on
a
its own.
standalone story.
Okay.
Just kind of lighthearted, action-heavy, very fun. What's notable about it is written and drawn by Steve Scroce, who is kind of becoming a comic book industry legend at this point. He actually started drawing in the 90s, and he's always been a really good artist, but back in the 90s when he was drawing, he's drawing Wolverine and some other Marvel books, and it was very derivative of the 90s Image era style, so he looked like a Joe Madureira. I can never remember how to pronounce his name. We'll just say Joe Mad. That's what people call him. Joe Mad. And,
wow, you call yourself a comic book
I know,
guy.
right?
You can't pronounce the dude's name.
Joe Madureira. Joe Mad.
Seems legit. You could literally say any name and I'd be like, oh, cool, he's great.
Yeah. Schmitty Magoo.
I love him. He's my favorite. I mean, the stuff that he's made is very comic book-like.
It's comic booky.
It's comic booky.
He's always Steve Scroce's always been a really good artist, and in the 90s, though, like I said, he was very derivative of the time, and then he got out of the industry. He went to work in Hollywood as a storyboard artist, and he kind of honed his craft. And when he came back to comics, he started drawing in this new style. It's very reminiscent of Jeff Darrow, who he's the creator of Shaolin Cowboy, and he's also somebody that Steve Scroce worked with on the Matrix movie storyboards.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, so he's got this style now that's the figures are a little bit more grounded, like realistic figures. There's not as much exaggeration, and it's highly detailed.
Like
there's
that.
so much going on, but it also has this weird sense of humor to it. So there's just he really plays up just the silly stuff that is happening with just superpowers and in this issue magic, because it's about Doctor Strange.
I'm gonna tell you, I'm enjoying this.
And you get to see some nice Ben Grimm cheeks right there. This is one of those books that's not for kids, but
fantastic.
other than his glorious rock hams. Yeah,
excellent.
It's definitely a really good book. I highly recommend it if you just like fun comic books.
I think comic books should be fun.
That's generally speaking. Yes.
Isn't that kind of the gist?
Yes. So we'll lead off, or we'll follow that up with in the same spirit of fun comics. Now, this is going to be a little bit of a test, Dan. Have you heard of The Rocketeer?
I have heard of The Rocketeer.
Okay, good. We at least got there. So, are you aware that there was a movie that was made?
Yes.
Okay. So the Rocket.
I like this cover.
So this cover is beautiful.
Yes.
This is.
I might have to pick this up.
I highly recommend. This is Adam Hughes doing the cover, and he does a short story in it, This is just a standalone one-shot issue that has 3 short stories by different creators, and so this is really good. There have been a lot of Rocketeer comics that have come out over the years. What's notable about the Rocketeer is that it was created by Dave Stevens in 1982. And it was really, like, what made Rocketeer great was his art and his style. He created, like I said, in 82, but it was made as an homage to the golden age of superheroes and Pulp Fiction. So it's set in the 40s.
Gotcha.
So he's like you can see there's this Art Deco style.
Yeah.
He's just a guy. He's a pilot with a rocket pack.
Yeah.
And he's
doesn't have superpowers.
He doesn't have superpowers. There's no superpowers, but he's not super clever. But he's quick on his feet, and he's
Right.
He's kind
he's got a jetpack.
He's a lovable lunk with a jetpack.
So did Boba Fett.
And but like Dave Stevens' art was really good. This character here, Rocketeer's girlfriend, was based very heavily. You can see if you look at it, based very heavily on the model Betty Page,
Yeah, I
pop
was gonna
culture
say,
icon.
very, very Betty
so
Page.
he really liked her, and he just drew her into the comic, and it really just completed the whole aesthetic of the
Right.
era that
Yeah.
it takes
It
place
fits
in.
perfectly.
Yeah. So it's a really good comic. He unfortunately passed in 2011, I think.
Hey, Serena.
Hello. Thanks for joining us. And so it's unfortunate because, like, we only got like so many Rocketeer comics because it was all just built around him. But there have been a few in the last few years. They've been doing new ones with different creators, and what I was getting at is that it's really hard to live up to the reputation of Dave Stevens' art.
Yeah.
But they got really good artists for this issue. Adam Hughes is really fantastic. As I said, he's famous for doing kind of the good girl art, like like pinup art, and he's a really good story. He's done a lot of comics too. He's a really good storyteller. There's a second story who
Is this different artists?
It's different artists.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
The second story is somebody that I'm not familiar with. That was drawn by Craig Cernak. But it's a fun little adventure story. This one kind of has a few homages to Indiana Jones.
Okay,
which
I'm into that.
There's a
Yeah.
fedora there.
That's all the same era.
Yeah,
makes
same
sense.
era. So it's like, what if Rocketeer, had a brief run-in with Indiana Jones?
Yeah, they all fight some Nazis, right?
Yeah, exactly. You know it.
Bunch of Nazis. Serena says, I was just going to say it looks like Betty Page.
That's
It's
100%
legit. Yeah, it
supposed to be Betty Page. Yep.
What's the character's name?
It's Betsy, I think.
Betsy.
Yeah.
Betsy Page.
I always just say Betty. Yeah. But and then there's a third story drawn by Jay Lee, who is not somebody that I would associate with the like Dave Stevens retro style, but he's a really, really great artist, and it really works. Just it's a style of Rocketeer that you're not.
Oh man, he's messing
used to
this
seeing.
pilot up.
Oh yeah. So it's really good. So this is what's nice about this. Again, it's just a one-shot issue, 3 short stories by excellent creators.
Yeah.
Highly recommend
Art's
it.
awesome. Yeah, I think I'm actually going to grab that because I love the cover and I like the art.
Really, really good book.
Yeah.
Another.
Really creative. what do you mean really creative? You can draw hot people and also be creative. I'm going to
That's
tell you
true.
that right now. That's
Absolutely.
the whole comic book industry. What else you got?
So this is my other favorite book that has come out. I have been kind of obsessed with this book, Local Man.
Local Man.
And you may have heard me make reference earlier to 90s era art. This book epitomizes 90s era art.
Oh, Betty versus Betsy. She's saying the name is very creative.
Oh, yes.
I thought you were talking about the art. The art.
So
What's up with Local Man?
This book, Local Man, is it's a modern day, set in a modern day, and it's about a superhero. He's an ex-superhero.
Okay.
And he's been kicked off of his superhero team, and he's forced to move back home to his hometown in Wisconsin, where everybody hates him, and because of something that he did in the past, which is the reason why he's been kicked off the superhero team. And he's legally prohibited from using his powers to fight crime or solve mysteries or anything like that.
Okay.
And so it's kind of set up like it's a noir story. So he's this, this lovable lunk, and he's in town, and he finds like an old flame, but then all his old villains that are retired are starting to get murdered.
Oh,
And so
interesting.
he's trying, and of course everybody blames him. Because he was the hero, and
Right.
so But what's really great about it is it has this whole throwback to the '90s, where the team that he was on was very much like an Image Comics '90s team. So there's a lot of references to Image Comics creators, or not creators, I'm sorry, creations, the teams, like Wildcats and Spawn and Youngblood. And in relation to Youngblood, each issue is a flip book. And so it has 2 stories in it. Yeah,
There you
see,
go.
flip it over.
There you
So this
go.
is the other cover. And so the B story takes place in the 90s, and it's just 100% done as like an over-the-top
comic from that
90s
90s.
extreme comic.
I got you.
And then it's got all the characters in the style. Like if you've read a lot of Image Comics back in the day, you would recognize a lot of these references. These characters are all done very much like it's a
Right.
pastiche or
Yeah.
a parody, even you could say.
An
of-
homage?
An homage. I was avoiding that one, but you're right. An homage.
That's my favorite thing is an homage.
There's a lot of
I'm sorry.
homages in comics.
I feel like there's going to be because they've been around for so long, and how easy is it to create something 100% original?
Exactly.
It's really not.
Plus, comic book creators are all nerds, and they love their comics.
And they're telling everyone, I love this thing, I'm going to draw something that looks similar.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, so like the regular story is more like it's like almost like a detective story where
Yeah.
he's trying to like figure out this mystery, but like I said, legally he has to avoid the police because he's not allowed to use his powers.
Watch out for the
Yeah,
fuzz.
yeah. But yeah, really good. Excellent comic. Highly recommend it.
Nice.
And then I got one more book I want to talk about. Like I said, it was a pretty light week.
It is a light week.
But I'm willing to say this is the best comic that's come out this week. The last 3 books I talked about were all genre fiction, superheroes mostly. But this is just straight up fiction. You could maybe say historical fiction if you like. This is a book called Deep Cuts, Issue 2.
Cuts.
Issue 2 came out today. Issue 1 was last month, which actually I have a copy of it right here if you just want to see the covers side by side.
Oh,
see,
look at that.
Look at that. They
It goes together.
Yep.
I like that. Sold.
So this is
Sold.
wonderful comic. It takes place in early 20th century. Each issue is its own story. So it's like an anthology series where it's just one complete story in each issue. So this new issue, I believe it is 1928, so like right at the beginning of the Prohibition era.
Okay.
And right before.
Oh, dude, yeah, that art's really cool.
Beautiful. It's really great art.
What style would we call that?
I would say it's I'm not a total art guy,
Yeah.
but the era of the time
Yeah.
was Art Deco,
So
which
Art
is
Deco, I would say.
very similar to the Rocketeer. But
Look at that Art Deco.
look at us using art words. But this is just a pretty straightforward drama about this young woman who's trying to make it on Broadway, writing a play, and it needs to be a hit. And so she's got one weekend to write a hit song. And jazz is kind of this new thing, and so
Yeah.
she tries to get in touch with some jazz roots.
Jazz
She
it up.
goes back to Chicago for a family wedding, and she hangs out at some jazz clubs, meets some people, and it's just a really, really great story. You can tell that the creators, which it was written by Kyle Higgins and Joe Clark, and this issue is drawn by Helena Macelis. And you can tell that the creators have a deep love of jazz. There's a lot of musical theory talk, but not in a way that like puts off a reader. Like you don't need to understand it to understand the story.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
the characters, they're musicians, so they talk
so
naturally.
they are speaking
So-
like in actual musicians.
Correct.
How a musician would speak. That
Yeah,
knows the
and the
language of music.
the
Blah 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 blah.
the writers, if they're not musicians themselves, they did their due diligence and
Right.
and know how to speak the language.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I
How
have
to
to
make it
assume,
believable.
I have to assume they probably are musicians. It's a really good book. It's about jazz. It's about history, and it's the best book that came out this week, hands down. I recommend it to everybody.
The best
if
book.
you just like compelling fiction, it can't get better than this.
Our goal is to get everyone to get some comic books and then realize that there's a whole different world out there than just superheroes. I mean, this is a story about a woman writing a song.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't even have considered that to be like a possibility
Yeah.
for a comic book, but
Yeah.
here we are. There's so many different things out there.
Comics can be anything. And
Comics
that's what I
can be
love
anything.
about them.
That's wild. Serena said that's how it works, right? Artists pick up things from other artists.
That's
Yeah.
right.
I mean, it's not necessarily, the difference between homage and inspired by, I think, is a very thin line. But yeah.
I leave that for the artists to fight out.
We'll figure, yeah,
You know,
they
like
figure it out.
who's a rip-off hack and who's paying paying tribute to
Who's
the,
actually legit paying tribute?
yeah,
Who's,
who's
just ripping
standing
off
on
another
the
person's
shoulders of
style?
giants, and who's just.
Who's the worst artist at ripping off other people's styles? Let's go there.
I'm not going there. I don't want to make any enemies. There's a lot of names that immediately jump to mind.
I knew that would be a good question, but I think that's the things that we need to talk about here. So if you see these comic books, you're like, that guy sucks. Ooh, spill the tea. That's right. We gotta know.
I don't want to turn off any fans.
All
over
right,
yours.
that's fine.
They're out there though.
I mean, there's got to be. I mean, but there is such a large selection of comic books. Not everybody, not all of them are going to be amazing.
Oh, sure.
Like I bought a few. Like I bought one or two. Like I was buying a bunch of Star Trek ones, and there was one that I bought, and it was like a one-off story. And I was like, this kind of sucked. Like it just wasn't very good. Like I read it, and I'm like, huh. And I think that was the first time since I started collecting comics that I read a comic that I just was like, oh, that was kind of a flop for me.
Yeah.
And I was like, huh, like movies, TV, music, that sometimes they just aren't very good, and that's okay.
That's why I'm usually pretty careful about licensed comics, like Star Trek, where it's a brand and they're going to make a product and they got to hire somebody to write it. And that's not to say that the people working on it aren't going to do their best, but to me, that just reads differently than something that you can tell is coming from the artist's passion.
Sure,
and that's
yeah.
like with reference to Deep Cuts. Like you can just tell it's such a good book and that it's something that they're really passionate about and something they really know a lot about. And it's like that's a story that needs to be told, and it just hits me more than something that's and you're talking. I love Star Trek.
Oh, I love
like
Star Trek.
I absolutely love Star Trek.
Love it.
But that's just like when you talk about like licensed stuff, like
Yeah.
Marvel characters, DC characters, it's the
Sure.
same thing. You never know. It's like the reason I like Clobbering Time is because that feels like a story that only Steve Scroce could tell. He wasn't
Right.
just some guy hired to make a thing.
Sure, yeah, that makes sense. Well, I brought this other book that I thought was really
saw
funny,
that.
and it's funny. I don't know why, but hey, here's a book. This is not a comic book, but this is How to Talk to Your Cat About Gun Safety.
It is definitely a book that I think everybody should own.
If you have a cat, for sure, 100%, you need to get this book. And what's funny about this book is it's an homage to every How to Talk to Your Child About XYZ book that you could think of, and it is absolutely ridiculous.
It also includes abstinence, drugs, Satanism, and other dangers that threaten their 9 lives.
Yeah, ridiculous. Like I picked it up, just kind of was poking through it, and I was like, "This is the most silly thing."
I just
I've ever seen.
opened right up to the
exact
page with
same
the cover
picture.
on it. How about
Wow,
that?
There you go. Nice.
Magical.
So I think this would be a great gift for anybody with a cat or a dog or an animal, just to be kind of silly with that.
This is genuinely a really, really funny book.
It's funny,
and it's also
it's really funny.
You don't have to do much to sell it other than just read the title
No.
and see the picture.
Yeah, like that. You like cats?
Yeah. Do you like guns?
Do you want to make sure that you want to make sure your cats are safe? Buy that book. Easy enough.
Yeah, that one also gets a good recommendation.
Highly recommended. Talking to your cat about gun safety.
Look at that.
It is a light week. That's all the books you brought.
That's all I brought.
That's it.
Yeah, I didn't have much else to talk about. I didn't want to overdo it. Last week I felt like I was loaded with stuff to talk about.
You had a lot to talk about.
I did, yeah.
There's a lot of good books. You just had to talk fast.
I try to. I got to keep up with you. It ain't easy.
I was just letting you go. No, it was great. It was great. I was just sitting there. I'm just soaking in the knowledge like a sponge. I always learn something new every time we hang out on stream. So yeah, man. We'll do this again next week on Wednesday. We'll probably have a lot more books because it's going to be the beginning of the month. Are there more books at the
there's
beginning
going
of
to
the
be
month?
a ton of
Okay.
And there's a lot of other good stuff that came out this week. The DC, I meant to bring it and I forgot, so I feel like an idiot. DC put out their DC Pride anthology, and that has the cover I think you were going to get with Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy. I haven't read it yet, so I can't speak to it like on the level that I can speak to these.
Yeah,
but it looks
cover.
really good,
Yeah.
and it's a great cover.
Yeah,
and
beautiful.
I know a lot of people are always excited for the DC Pride books. I really liked the one last year. And so I'm looking forward to flipping through it. I just haven't had a chance to yet.
There's only so much time in the day to read comics, man.
Right.
We'll get it done. Awesome. All right, let's do this next week. Thanks for checking us out. If you're watching us on Twitch, we'll see you. If you're watching us on YouTube, find us next week, Twitch, and watch us live. It's way better. And we'll see you.
Bye.